WJZZ Cool TV. I am Dr. T, and we have, Dr. Fishta is not with us today. He is in beautiful, warm Florida. I'm a little bit jealous. I'm here in Detroit, and it is cold out here. I really wish I was in Florida. But anyway, today's show, we are going to be talking about disability rights. We have a very, very special guest that will be joining us, Dr. Kimberly Kennedy Barrington with 100 Shades of Disability. She has a show called Rolling with Dr. Kim. So we will have her join us, and then we have a special guest that will be joining us in the studio. Teron Elliott will be joining us. Um, to give us some special information to help us cope with the pandemic and some tips to help us deal with stress. But just so you all will know, the disability rights movement was a social movement to help secure equal opportunity and equal rights for people with disability. You know, and some of those goals, I don't know if you all are really familiar with what disability is. So, actually, let me tell you a little bit about what disability is considered. You had different types. So, you may have there may be a physical disability, there may be a mental disability, visual, or hearing. But the goal and the desire for individuals with disability, right, that have disability, um, was oh, let me look at you all. So those individuals that have disabilities, we didn't always have this movement. So this was a transition, but the goals for people with disabilities was to have accessibility and safety in the architecture, transportation, the physical environment in which we live, equal opportunities, to be independent in their living conditions, employment opportunities, um, education, housing, be free of discrimination, to not have abuse and to be neglected. These were all of the things that people with disability desired. This movement or disability activists, they actually worked to break institutional, physical, and societal barriers, even the necessary accommodations in order for them to work. This is a real challenge for individuals, especially individuals that have maybe an invisible disability. And what that is a disability that you can't see, like the mental disability, the hearing disability. You know, if a person is wearing hearing aids, usually you don't see that. Well, back in the day, before they had these really cute devices that can fit right in your ear, there used to be a big machine that would be behind your ear, and you could tell that someone had a hearing impairment. But today, we don't have that. So even the advances for individuals with disability has progressed such a long way, and we want to highlight some of that, but we also want to talk about the challenges that are still faced for individuals that have a disability. And I really don't even like that word disability because it puts you behind the eight ball just by saying that you're disabled. Just because a person may have a disability. Hello, our guest is coming in. Um, we're gonna let him get settled. He still has his coat on, and he is using precaution. He has his mask on, and he's gonna join us shortly and join the conversation. And we have Dr. Kimberly Barrington that's also joining us. So this is wonderful. Both of our guests are coming in around the same time. So this is going to be, yes, put it wherever you like. This is going to be a really, really interesting show. Teron, can you tell our audience a little bit about you and what it is that you do?
Yes. First of all, thank you for having me. I truly appreciate it. Yeah, so my name is Teron Elliott. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I specialize in servicing young adults as well as school-age students. It's my life's work. I currently work for the University of Michigan Medical School, counseling their medical students. I also have my own business, One Life Mental Health Counseling Services, that I started in 2011.
Now, is that here, Detroit, or?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And so basically, I began working with school-age students back in 2011. That's what my passion, my heart is for students. So I contracted with Henry Ford Academy Elementary School, and I counseled their kindergartners through fifth graders. And that was a really rewarding experience for me. I know a lot of people like to say, well, what do, counseling kindergartners? You'll be surprised, what's going on in the minds of our young people. And so
Absolutely. And I totally understand that. I think the youngest child that I started off with was 3 years old. And it was behavior issues because he was biting children while he was still in preschool. And had night terrors and all types of things. So children, we do have to realize that children do have behavior issues and other issues even as young as 3 years old, and that they can receive services for those situations.
Absolutely.
Right. So we're Dr. Kimberly Kennedy Barrington is going to be joining us. We're working to get her. She's going to stream in live with us, and we're going to be talking about disability rights. We talked about that the other day.
Yes.
And have you worked with any clients that have disabilities?
Yes, I have. And it's interesting that we're talking about this because I deal with a lot of clients who have anxiety and depression. And so part of what I do is to help them to develop coping strategies. For example, when working with students, test anxiety is something that's huge.
Absolutely.
And so, of course, I, help to get them connected to resources, but I also work with them on how to prepare for those exams mentally. So they're not getting in their own way when it comes to testing, and that is valuable. So that's something that I've seen recently within the last few years. It's just like a heightened awareness for students with anxiety, especially.
Oh my God!
Test anxiety.
I think I'm a little bit older than you. So, test anxiety has been around a long time. I
Yeah.
was talking to my aunt, and she's in her 70s.
Okay.
And she talked about how when she was a kid, and she had anxiety with taking tests. So this isn't something that's new. It's something new that we've researched, but it's not necessarily new as far as people experiencing it.
Correct. Correct.
So I think that's really important because we do miss some of these things. And now that we're in the 21st century, a lot of things that we did not take note of or take heed of, we're doing it now. Some of the listeners know that have been listening to the show that I have dyslexia.
Okay.
So that is a cognitive disability or a learning disability that affects my my ability to read. So I used to be very shy with speaking in public or reading lines because I was nervous. I know the word, but guess what? Just because I know it doesn't mean that my brain is going to recognize it.
Exactly.
So that knowing, and for parents, knowing your child, this is something that a parent really has to do. Really pay attention to their child, their learning patterns, and to get them the help that they need at an early age.
Absolutely.
Because I think if I didn't have that help in first grade, and had a teacher
Mm-hmm.
to recognize it. We did eye testing
Mm-hmm.
and everything. It was, oh, well, she needs glasses. Well, no, I don't need glasses. I can see fine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I can see like a mile away, literally
Yeah.
see a mile away. So
Yeah.
it's not the fact that I can't see, something else is going on.
Absolutely.
And even when the teacher moved me to the front to sit right by the board, I still had problems with, reading.
Mm-hmm.
So she got me tested. And that's when we found out that I had dyslexia.
Mm-hmm.
And I went through a resource room where I was taken out of the class and had special training with back then it was those D-dot computers.
Yeah.
I don't even know if you know what that
Yeah.
is, but this big huge computer, and I would sit there for an hour 3 days out the week
Mm-hmm.
and learn different cues and strategies. And even when we had to take tests, I had to go outside of the classroom in the hallway,
Yeah.
and someone read the questions to me
Mm-hmm.
so that I can answer it. And I think for me that was really beneficial
Mm-hmm.
because I was able to recognize certain words when oftentimes just me reading I could not. So do we have a caller on the line? Thank you for joining us. This is In Session. Who do we have on the line?
You have Dr. Kimberly Barrington. How are you?
Hi, Dr. Barrington. How are you?
I am doing well. What an honor to be on your show today.
Well, it is an honor to have you on this show, especially since I was watching your show yesterday and you had who'd you have on there? Richard Small.
Oh,
You had?
Richard Smallwood.
Yes, I watched your show and you guys had a very stimulating conversation about depression. And even you went and talked about how it's even embedded in our DNA. So I was like all on your call, all on your page, like, yeah. Just say that. So,
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
thank you for joining me today. And we have in the studio Mr. Teron Elliott. So we have been talking just a little bit about disabilities. We tapped on this dyslexia and some of the work that he does with working with individuals that have disability. So, Dr. Barrington, can you tell our audience a little bit about you? And I hear some feedback in the background. I don't know if it's something playing in the background or what it is, but
Um, we actually turned the radio is off. Not sure where the feedback is coming from, unless it's because of my hearing aids. But I need them to be able to talk to you.
okay. Well, you know what you do, what you need to do. We want to make sure you have all the accommodations you need so that we can hear you and you can hear us. So tell our audience a little bit about you and some of the things that you do.
Well, my name is Dr. Kimberly Barrington, and I am the founder and CEO of 100 Shades of Disability, where we improve the quality of life for persons with disabilities economically, financially, that's the economics, to help them to improve their economic status, legislatively, and through community partnerships and education.
Now, can you tell me some of the work that you've done legislatively?
Oh, how help to get House Bill 4516 and 4517 implemented, and it changed languaging on how you describe persons with disabilities. And if you see the new signs where you see the person in the wheelchair and the silhouette looks like they're moving forward, help to get that changed.
Okay.
And so it was at no cost to the state. It's that if you put up new signs or you need to have signage, then you could start with the new logo, and it no longer says handicap, it says accessible.
I am so glad that that language has been changed because that always has bothered me. That word disability. That to me that means that you're unable to. And that doesn't necessarily equals a disability, Just because you're disabled or have limitations doesn't mean that you can't do. And you are a
This is
perfect
true.
example because you be rolling, you know. No pun intended, but you are on the
Right.
move. You are on fire.
Well, I wasn't like that at the very beginning. So it wasn't until a decision was made about me, for me, concerning me, without me, that created this righteous indignation. And I said, you know what? Never again will persons get together, make a decision about how the quality of my life should be, and I not be at that table,
Absolutely.
or at least, or given the opportunity to even have a voice in it.
Mhm.
And I didn't realize how much that happened. However, if what do we call it? I wouldn't say my bio, but just a philosophy that I have,
Mhm.
and I make sure that it goes out all the time. The prefix before able is dis. So
Mhm.
by definition, I was born with a disability because it's the ability not to be able to do, because I was born black and I was born female.
Mhm.
So to
So,
me, those were two disabilities that I had from the beginning, without the one, the textbook version of what people believe a disability is.
yeah.
But of course, later in life, I did acquire physical disabilities, and so I think, as I talked about yesterday, how some things are systemic.
Mhm.
So, as systemically, African Americans are disabled because there are places that they just don't go, whether it's economically, whether it's legislatively, or whether it's in their community. As women, we talk about the glass ceiling all the time. Places
Absolutely.
that we are left out of. And so guess what? That makes us disabled. And so when you add the physical part of it, I said, wow, we're taught to accept it as a woman. We're taught to accept it as a race of people. However, when you get into, well, I can't physically get into a building, then you're like, wait a minute. Do I have the right to say something about this and get this changed
Right.
for myself or for others?
Right. Now
So
before
those,
you I'm sorry. Go ahead.
mm-hmm.
No, I was
Oh
going
no,
to
I
say Go ahead, Dr. Barrington.
go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You're my guest. Go ahead.
Okay, so that's where I started to differentiate in that dis part, um, because I knew how to live with it as a woman. I knew how to live with it as a person of color. But when it came to the physicality of it, you know what? I think it's time for me to start to say something about this.
Mm-hmm. Now, before you and Mr. Elliott joined the show, I was talking about some of the barriers to disability in the workplace, to just architecture, transportation, our physical environment, and even the ability to live independently. The barriers in housing and education. What are some additional barriers, or what do these barriers look like? And mainly like in their environment. I was talking to another individual that is disabled. His name is Baba Baxter Jones, and he's in a wheelchair as well. And he brought to the attention of how if he's out and just going out in the community and he's in his wheelchair on the sidewalk, and if there's not a flat space, well, I don't know the technical name of it, but at the
They're called
curb.
curb cutaways.
Yes,
Curb cutaways.
yes.
Hmm.
So if there's no curb cutaway, he has a challenge just crossing the street. And these aren't things that people that don't have a disability or that are supposed to are able-bodied people, we don't think about that.
Right.
So how can we start to have that language with just the average person or our city officials to make sure that people that do have some form of limitation can have access to just the environment and enjoy a good quality of life?
Well, I have to say, I'm in Kent County. I
Mhm.
haven't visited that many places in Wayne County, but when I have, most of them have been accessible to me.
Mm-hmm.
But here in Kent County, and I do believe that it is statewide, that any sidewalks that get put in, they have to have cutaways. So unless you're in an area that has not been renovated in years,
Mm-hmm.
which I think there probably are very few at this point because of gentrification, all of them now do have cutaways. And they do have the barrier for persons that have visual impairment. They also have changed the crosswalks
Mm-hmm.
so that it speaks and it'll count down and tell you how many seconds. They have even changed the time on the crosswalk so that if you are visually impaired or have a physical disability and you need extra time in crossing the street, it is there.
Right. Now, we didn't have all these benefits prior to the 1950s. Even when President Franklin D. Roosevelt, he hid his disability, which to me actually perpetuated the idea that having a disability is a weakness. And it wasn't until when the March of Dimes, they were the first organization to actually advocate and support individuals that had a disability, and that wasn't until the 1950s. That's not that long ago. That's literally
No, not really.
60 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So this is still a new fight that you all are having, and even with the disability movement that gained traction during the civil rights movement and the women's rights movement, where they joined to make sure that they can promote equal treatment and challenge those stereotypes. So this is still a fight that you all are continuing, right? So,
Absolutely. I'm sorry. Absolutely. It's not just a.
and I shouldn't say you all because I have a disability, so I'll say that we continue to fight,
I was getting ready to say, lady.
Yes, I include myself in that, so.
Thank you. But it's what really brought it to the forefront, I think the greatest, was former President Obama and his wife Michelle produced a film called Crip Camp, where they talked about back in the 60s what they used to do to have this camp.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was just how they looked at how it started then and what it looks like now,
Mm-hmm.
and the changes that have happened. It just blew my mind to see that the Black Panthers actually came alongside when they got ready to do the hold on one second.
Mm-hmm. So, Tehran, with us being also mental health counselors and being in this mental health field, what do you think that we could be doing to help the the disabled community?
I think the more we can educate and let them know, like, hey, you're a human, you matter, your voice matters. And so the more that we can encourage them to speak up regarding whatever issues that they have, help to educate them, I think that would do wonders in supporting individuals with disabilities. One of the things that I like to do is I like to help all people as much as possible. And, just having, being there and supporting individuals is so important. But just, for example, if someone is in a wheelchair and they're looking to go into the store, mindful things that I like to do is, sir, ma'am, may I open the door for you?
Mm-hmm.
They may not want help. They may want to do it on their own. So just asking and being respectful in that sense, I think can go a great distance.
Right, giving them a sense of dignity.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And I think, well, I'm actually glad that we have the American Disabilities Act that wasn't even established until 1990. That's when that law was passed that actually made it illegal. It legally prohibited discrimination on account of disability and mandated disability access in all buildings and public areas. And before 1990, we didn't have that. And I can remember when that law took effect. I was in the 12th grade when that law actually was passed, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is wonderful. This is great." And and then I'm like, "But what does it really mean?" And just because now it's a law and there's mandates, how long is it going to take for these buildings and public spaces to actually put systems in place like the what did she call it, curb, what's it called again?
Yeah.
The access. I
Yeah.
don't even, oh my gosh, I don't even remember what it's called. Oh my gosh.
It's called curb cutaways.
Let me write this down. Curb cutaways.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, Dr. Barrington, can you, because you weren't always in a wheelchair.
No, ma'am, I was not.
So, how was that transition for you, being someone who could walk and jump and wear your 5-inch heels and, twirl around? How was that transition for you? What were some of the feelings and challenges that you faced?
Well, I still wear 5 and 6-inch heels. That hasn't changed.
Okay.
I just do it now sitting down, and my feet don't hurt.
You
But-
know what? Don't talk about that.
Yeah. My feet don't hurt. And you know what? I've even been blessed to buy some red bottom shoes. I have a few pair of those. So, yeah, it was a challenge initially, just accepting a different modality.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was more what other person's perceptions were of me as a person with a disability than what I thought about myself.
Oh, well, let's hear more about that. When you say that it was more of a challenge for other people versus you.
Everyone remembered the old Kim, the one that, of course, as you were saying, who was able-bodied and not being able to accept someone with a disability. Even when I came here I'm at the dealership now getting my car repaired. They were really surprised because I wheeled up. They didn't know that I was in a wheelchair, and they were like, "Oh my goodness." I said, "Can you, I needed to get out." They were like, "Well," I said, "Can you get my wheelchair?" What?
Wait, ladies and gentlemen, you're watching In Session on WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world. And if you want to join the conversation, please call us at 313-355-6018. Our phone lines are open, and you can like, follow, share, and subscribe on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Periscope. So we welcome you to do that. And we are in the studio. We have Teron Elliott, and we also have Dr. Kimberly Kennedy Barrington, who is at the car dealership picking up her car. And that is what you hear in the background. We have some special invited guests who don't even know that they're on the show. So I'm going to go to Mr. Elliott. With you and your practice, and when you were looking for space to provide your services, did you take into account individuals that may have disabilities?
Actually, when I first started my practice, my goal was to go into the schools to assist children, to assist the students. And the reason that I wanted to do that was because, oftentimes children don't have control over the things that go on at home, but in school they have control. They have a chance to showcase what they can do, learning abilities and things of that nature. What I found was when students are coming to school, they're not 100% present because of things that are going on at home.
Absolutely.
And so when they come to school, you know, they have an expectation to learn, but if I'm not there mentally, then all of that goes out of the window.
Right. For example, if you didn't have breakfast because there's no food at home.
Absolutely.
Or you don't have heat, so you woke up this morning and really couldn't, you washed up with some cold water, or your clothes wasn't as clean as they should be. Or mom's not there in the morning because she's at work and you have to get your brothers and sisters ready for school.
Yes.
That's additional stress that the children take into school, and they are unable to concentrate and to focus. So I get exactly what you're saying.
Absolutely. And so when you have a young man or a young woman come to school and they haven't, like you mentioned, they haven't eaten. And so I don't know about you, but I get extremely irritated when I'm hungry, so I can't.
Listen,
I'm
a whole nother monster.
Exactly.
If I don't eat, I'm
get hangry, you know.
Yeah.
And so it's important that we address those concerns with students. So for example, if I have a student who reports to class in the morning and they didn't answer when the teacher was taking roll call, or they got an attitude, and so first thing in the morning they're getting put out of class.
Mm-hmm.
I will sit down with that student. Hey, tell me what's going on. How can I help you? What's the problem? And I sit and I listen and I help them process from their perspective what went on. And not only that, we talk about strategies. We talk about, okay, if you could do this differently, what would you do? How would you have handled it differently?
Right.
And so we examine those things. And then so now we talk about strategies. And then after that, we role play it.
Oh, I love role playing.
I mean, and it's so.
Dr. Thomas, keep it clean.
Well, I'm not going to talk about dropping it like it's hot, like some people do. Dr. Barrington and I also have a personal relationship, so we talk about a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, if you hear us say something, it might be an inside joke.
Got you. Yeah, but I think it's important to role play and to put students in that mindset, so when they go back to class, they know how to handle themselves. And more importantly, before they go back, I say, hey, I'm going to come back and check on you later on in the day to see how you're doing. I'll make sure we have a good report, because when we meet again, we can do like extra 15 minutes of talk time, or I would always have different educational games to play with the students to enhance their learning. And so that has been beneficial, and the students love it, the parents love it. I'm able to help bridge the gap with the students and the parents and the administration. We start to see suspensions go down because those emotional needs were being addressed right then and there on the spot.
Right.
And I think that is so very important.
Especially for children.
Absolutely.
It has to be handled immediately instead of maybe a day or two later. Once you get it right then and there, they're able to process it better.
Absolutely.
Dr. Barrington.
Yes, ma'am.
We are talking. I want you to just. I want to give you the floor to talk about whatever it is that you would like to say at this time.
Well, I'm just glad that you have an open platform to be able to talk about disabilities and what they look like or don't look like. I think that's one of the things that we really need to work on. However, I believe that there are some strides that have been made due to the pandemic, because I believe that it ripped the Band-Aid off of the apathy of the whole world. And I mean, it just revealed so many places where we already had some viruses that had killed people mentally, emotionally, prior to the pandemic ever coming. And to me, my favorite thing to talk about is zombies. and they really have just been nothing but, a zombie,
Right.
around here. And
And
they've been brought back to life.
right. I think, and we talked about this, you and I, about how this pandemic has actually made everyone disabled.
Oh,
It did.
And just dealing with the stress of being isolated in your home and not being able to gather and have the social outlet that we were once used to. So let's touch on that, how this has really impacted society as a
Mm.
whole and the mental strain that it has on all of us. I mean, this is a whole nation, and literally globally. We can't just
Yes.
talk about what's going on just here in
No.
the US, but this is impacting the whole entire world. This
Yes.
doesn't happen. This is history.
hmm And that's the difference between an epidemic and a pandemic.
Mhm.
Is that an epidemic is something that is centralized, and a pandemic is something that happens globally.
Exactly.
And so, for me, that's the best way, I guess. To go back to the question that you said, what was it like since I acquired a physical disability that required me to use a wheelchair? How did it change my life? The same way that it has done everyone else when the pandemic hit. That now I became socially isolated because every place that I had always gone,
Mhm.
it was set up for able-bodied people. And for me to try to come back into my world and realize that it was not made for me. It was like being in a pandemic for me. I was socially isolated, and people socially distanced themselves from me as if I did have a virus. I did have a virus. I had this disability virus, and now we were no longer able to communicate the way that we normally did. And so I immediately had to go from, going out with everyone to people either having to come to my home, and or we just had to relegate to FaceTiming and text messaging.
So you had to you had to adapt, and so did the people around you.
Yep, they did.
Yeah.
They
And
did.
and oftentimes individuals that have disability suffer abuse and neglect from their own family. Um
Yes,
it's
they do.
and go ahead, Dr. Barrington. Go ahead. I know you. I hear it. Go ahead. Take the floor.
um, for me, it was no one wanted to accept where I was.
Mhm.
Well, maybe it's going to reverse itself because, of course, the doctors try to give you the best outcome.
Mhm.
So they'll say, well, some people recover. If it's a bleed, the bleed can resolve itself, and once the brain finishes, the swelling goes down, you may regain some use. They give you all of the wonderful folks that they know who recovered from a stroke. They say if there's a blood clot, we can do some thinners, and that will help. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case for me.
All right,
So
but
everybody was
really quick, let me do a real station break. You're watching In Session on WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world, and I am Dr. T. Please give us a call at 313-355-6018, and you can catch us streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Periscope. Please like, share, follow, and subscribe. And we are with Dr. Barrington and Mr. Teron Elliott. That means I was getting ready to call you a doctor, so that means you need to go back to school and pick that up. All right.
if I can find somebody to pay for it, I
All right,
sure
we'll
will.
work on that. We'll work on that.
I
So,
definitely will.
Dr. Barrington, can you finish what you were saying, please?
So I think for me, it was how everyone had to relate to me. Most persons like to say, "Oh, you have a disability. Oh, we can fix you. What's wrong? Let's fix that." I said that it was a two-edged sword. That the young lady who did the poetry for the inauguration, the way they described her, She was a person with a disability, but she got fixed.
Mm.
She had a speech impediment, but it got fixed though. So now she was able to stand in front of the whole world and read this poem. She was chosen because she overcame. Well, I'm sorry, 99.9% of the persons that have disabilities cannot be fixed.
Right.
So it was a two-edged sword. Are we excited that someone who has a disability was featured at such a high level? Absolutely. She's been shared all over the internet. Her pictures have gone viral. They've taken out bits and pieces of her speeches, and they make sure, just like they do with President Biden, to say, yeah, and he had a speech impediment. He had a disability, but you know what? He worked on it, and it got fixed.
That's right. And
That
and like you said, certain things can be
minute.
worked on.
But it is systemic ableism at its best.
Talk about it.
That is we talk about systemic racism. Anything with an ism on the end usually is somewhere, it's systemic, and it has been a long time. So that language that they have been using to describe the president and this young lady is a long history of systemic ableism. To say, you know what, this is what we're trying to tell you. Y'all handicapped people can get fixed. You disabled people can be fixed, because these two disabled people fix themselves, and look where they are. So fix yourself so you can be someplace too.
Yeah, and that's the challenging
That's
part. That was very powerful, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And for me, Dr. Barrington, you and I discussed my disability. I actually have two disabilities. In addition to having dyslexia, I also have what is it? Scoliosis. And I don't talk about that at all, because I don't find that, for me, being disabling. Even though I recall being a kid and I was told, "Oh, you have scoliosis." No, I don't. I know now. So it's like, what does this mean? Well, you can't play sports. You can't do this. You can't. However, I ran track. I was on the swim team. I was on the softball team. So I mean, I run medals in triathlons.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, how you can? I played tennis. I played football in the streets with the boys. So how is that a disability if I'm doing it? So I think when we tell children that they have a disability, that it limits them, it caps them at a certain level. Even in counseling sessions, I have parents that, I don't know if you've experienced this, that they'll tell their child, "Oh, well, you have ADHD or you have ADD, so you can't learn." BS. You can learn.
Absolutely.
You just learn differently.
Yep.
But you can learn, and you can accomplish and do anything you want, including being president, if that's what the heck you want to do. Or being a janitor. Whatever it is you want to do, you can do it. There's no limitations. There are no bounds to what a person can do, regardless of their ability or disability. So I think we need to change that and stop teaching our children. Stop teaching our children that they have limitations.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm going to tell you something that I think your audience is probably not going to like, but we have to accept responsibility for our personal disability and for those of our children. And anything that makes us work outside of our comfort zone, we don't want to do. Anything that aids us in being manipulative, we don't want to change. So if it works for me to whine and cry about being in a wheelchair, I promise you, I can get people to cater to me all day long,
That's
and I
right.
won't have to do not one thing I want for myself.
So
And if I'm nasty, mean, and ugly, and I don't want to go back, I'm mad at you because you have a doctoral degree, but all I have to do is go back and get one. And I said, but you know what? I'm disabled, and they're not going to help me. Oh, the school just won't do anything for me. How about You get on the phone and you call Dr. Barrington, and I promise you, you'll be in school tomorrow.
Right. And then universities again, the American Disabilities Act created laws to make institutional put accommodations in place for students. I work at two universities. Both of them have disability services. I have had students that have disabilities. They have an accommodation letter. They get extra time to complete assignments. So it's no excuse unless you want it to be an excuse.
And that's it. Don't take away my excuses.
Right. Right.
Don't take away my excuses.
To not do.
And to not do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I want Teron Elliott to give us a few, because we are still in this pandemic. What are some tips and strategies that you have to help people get through this?
Yes. So, we all have been dealing with this pandemic. It has taken a toll on all of us. We've been forced to, well, not forced. Well,
Yeah, we've been forced.
Yeah, we've been forced to stay in our homes.
Yes, there's mandates. We've been forced.
And yeah, and so that has been taxing on us. But I feel, so here's my perspective when it comes to this. If we've been forced to stay home, then I feel as though we need to go with that flow.
Use that time wisely.
Use that time wisely, not fight it. And so I have this thing, since we're at home, let's get our house in order.
Absolutely. Amen. Can I get a amen?
Yeah, let's
hallelujah, Allahu Akbar, or whatever.
Yes, my mom used to say that all the time. Make sure your house is in order, and what that means is just, again, like you had mentioned, making great use of the time that we have. I truly feel things are going to get better with us, and we should be better coming out of this pandemic.
That's right.
So, what does getting your house in order mean? Well, it means that you can physically take care of your house, but also taking care of yourself and others in it, but allowing positive energy to come into your home since we have to be at home. Well, what are some of the ways that we can do that? Well, the first thing that we can do is, since we have to be at home, let's start by cleaning our homes.
Shut up.
Listen.
No, shut up.
Because and let me tell you why that's important. Because if we start, with the basis, with the foundation, which is home. If we start by cleaning our home, taking a weekend, cleaning up that room that we've been meaning to get to, cleaning out the garage. What we can do is, when we clean up our homes, we can we can open up space for a small workout area or even a small wellness space for us to go to meditate, to feel relaxed, to listen to focus music. And
I agree.
It doesn't matter how big your home is. If I truly believe everything that we need is right in front of us and is in our home. And so if we take advantage of that, let's clean up the room, let's clean up the closet, let's clean out the garage, and let's open up some space, get rid of the clutter so it'll allow that energy to flow within us. And so that's huge. Another thing that has been extremely important, exercise.
Absolutely.
We haven't been moving as much.
He's talking all this stuff that I need to do. I'm gonna put you out in a minute.
Well, I'm here to share some tips of what we
I need a maid. How about that?
So exercising has been a huge thing for us all. So what are some of the ways that we can get exercise while we're at home? Well, the first thing that we can do is, we all love to watch TV, right? So why not get in jumping jacks during commercial breaks? The average commercial break lasts 4 minutes. Let's see how many jumping jacks we can get in 4 minutes. Let's see how many push-ups we can get in. Let's see how many lunges we can get in, since we're watching TV anyhow. There are little things that we can do. Another thing that we can do is play music around the house as soon as you get home. And listen, not only play music, create the dance routines that go with the music. Do you know how many calories we can burn just by dancing and bringing that positive energy into our home just by playing music? I mean, think about it. If you played 7 of your best songs, when I say 7 of your best songs, I mean your jams.
Your high energy songs,
When that song comes on, you're like, oh, nope, that's my jam. Turn it on. play 7 of those songs in a row and sing and dance to them. You can put on your own private concert and be who you want to be, whether it's Patti LaBelle or Beyonce or whomever. You know, also what you can do is, and number one, that's important because that allows time for you to bond with your family. Your kids can get in on it. You can have dance competitions with your kids, and so now they're enjoying it. You're having fun. They're having fun, and you're building towards that that energy and those positive vibrations that you want in your home.
Well, you know what? We are actually out of time, but I want to thank both of you all for joining us today, and I would love to have you both back. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining another episode of In Session. Join us next week, and again, like, follow, share, and we will be back with you next Thursday from 5 to 6 on In Session with Dr. T and Fishta. Have a great week. All right.
We're all set.
We're all set.
Cool.
Let me have you sign this.